Welcome back to Contemporary Black Voices. Today, our topic has been the plight and future of Black farmers, and we had Dr. Alvenia Woodard Davis as a guest. So, I'm going to ask my seat companions here, what did you think about the interview?
I thought it was outstanding, very knowledgeable, and very, very knowledgeable.
Any ahas?
And I think what I wanted to raise is what I kind of missed. What did the NA? They took people's. Oh, I think it was the people left their land to the NACP.
And then the NACP sold it.
Well, they
Or
didn't pay the
didn't
taxes.
pay the taxes.
Oh,
They didn't pay the
yeah.
taxes on the land. So they had to sell.
Why would you leave your land to the NACP?
A lot of people do things like that. Leave it to the church, leave it to the NAACP, cars for kids. You got all kind of stuff that goes on. People do that.
I would say why. Does
Well,
anybody have any idea
I don't
why?
have any idea, but I'm just guesstimating at this point. Sister so and so, sister or brother so and so, they're about to die, and so they've been active members in these different organizations, right? And so the leaders within that organization will come to the home to talk to this person who is in health distress, and say, why don't you give us the land, give us your home, give us your car, give us your kids, and we will take care of them once you have passed on.
Okay.
This is what I'm thinking. But usually that's a snake oil sale.
And in addition to that, those people who are older and dying, they look at the NAACP as what they thought and what they remember it was, not what it is today.
But don't most people leave their? I mean, I've heard of leaving their inheritance to the church. I've never.
Well, there's
heard of the
been
NAACP.
some controversy about that recently. Did Aretha have a will?
No.
Prince didn't have a
No.
will. There's been several.
James Brown.
James Brown didn't have a will. You have several people who did not. In fact, most recently, Wakanda.
Chadwick Boseman.
He didn't have a will.
Right.
And so I don't understand how you have fought hard to acquire all of these goods and not have a will or a trust. And so there's a lot of cultural loopholes here that we need to close up those gaps.
Let me ask you, do you have one?
I have a will and a trust.
Okay. But most people, the reason why I ask is each of you know my wife is in the hospital. And my daughter called and said, do you have any kind of power of attorney or anything over my mother? And I said, no. She said, well, is there a will? I said, no. I said, I don't have one either. You know, which is to your point. No, I don't have it. Yes, I know I need it, but I still haven't done it.
You know, when I was watching my parents, especially when my father passed away, and how and I know we're kind of going off topic, but it kind of goes towards the topic as well, how they made sure that they had funerals, burial insurance, to where we did not have to worry about getting them in the ground and paying for that real estate. They already had things in place. They had a will. And then recently, my mother got a trust. And so as I watched her go through that process, I said, I need to update my will and get me a living trust to keep things out of probate. And that's where there's a lot of people in our community do not understand what happens if your property goes into probate.
Sure.
If it goes into probate, you may be tied up on not having access to that money, to that property for a long, long time.
That's correct.
Does it? If you're married, it automatically goes to your wife or your husband.
Not necessarily.
I think it does. Why wouldn't it?
Well, I think you just want, as we want to say, CYA.
And it depends on what state you're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
having, protecting that heir property, as you heard Dr. Davis mention earlier, to where it will cut down on the stress.
Mhm.
So I have both a will and a living trust. And the trust really overrides the will.
Right. Let's get back.
What I would have is something saying, my wife can't cremate me.
Yeah, because I sure would.
But, going back to the topic, and,
Okay, yeah.
about these black farmers, male and female, there is a lot of stuff going on with them to where they're not getting access to the financing. And according to Dr. Davis, she was telling me what happens is that the paperwork is so complex to where, and they have to get it in a certain time frame to where they just don't apply.
Let me attempt to ask you a question, which I wanted to ask of our guests, but time didn't permit, and I hope I can articulate this correctly. It seems like to me that we are becoming a country of dependency. Everybody is, whereas we used to be a nation of plenty, we seem to be becoming a nation of dependency. Everything, where can you get food from the food bank? Can you get these people in here? There's always these kind of things. She also talked about the Jim Crow issue and how feeling like it's almost going back to that time. So we know that farmers in general are having a problem, whether they be white or black, period. They're having that. The government or the big corporations like Monsanto and Dow and all those people are gobbling up everything that they're taking. And then we're coming to the issue of the black farmer, okay? So my question is that what do we do when we know all of these things are working against us and we're really wanting the black farmer, but you got people like with the situation with the NAACP, you got the federal government where I can't do the paperwork, their land is decreasing and not increasing. They can't take it to the market. There's just a lot of things that are going on. So I'm wondering how realistic it is for a black farmer, especially, but any farmer at all right now to buck the system.
But
Does that make sense?
it makes a lot of sense. You've got people like Bill Gates buying up land all over the place to where those French fries from McDonald's that you like to eat, those are his potatoes.
Wow.
They're not Idaho potatoes.
They're wherever.
No, he's saying he owns the land
Yeah, that's
and he's
what I'm
selling it to them.
Because he has a contract with McDonald's, and those are his potatoes for those French fries that we eat. I think, in my opinion, it's going to come down to serious awareness. There are black farmers who have websites now to where you can actually buy products directly from them. Now, admittedly, I haven't tried it yet, but I do know that you've got black farmers who do have products out there. So I know that, somewhere, in the near future, I will be trying to see, okay, send me some bacon, send me some ham.
Dr. Chadwell, for me, one of the most important things that she said is about voting. And people really take that for granted. But I find, back to what my question was, is how are all of these things that are happening? And it's basically happening because we've allowed people to be in office that don't support our interests. And because it doesn't support our interests, that's where we are losing these black farmers, where we're losing everybody. And from a Democratic standpoint, I mean, to me, with everything that's been going on, the message should be able to be clear that you want, no matter whether you're black, white, young, old, whatever, that your interest is there. Because the Republican Party seems to be a party that's not about us or anything else that's going on in America.
I hate to
So you
say
say
it.
us, you talk about blacks?
Blacks, yes.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to say the same. I'm going to be bold on this one. The Democrat Party has a huge question mark in my mind too.
I'm not disputing that, but I'm saying we right now, until we get a different system, we only have a two-party system.
Right.
Okay? And right now, if you got the chance to pick between the Republican and the Democrat Party, which one are you gonna pick?
Well, the Democrats, obviously.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what my point. So when she brings up the issue of saying that there's an issue with the Democrats as well, I'm acknowledging that, but I'm saying with the two-party system that you gotta choose one or the other.
Yeah, but one is extreme. Okay, to me, that's the distinction.
Okay.
One is extreme.
Okay.
You know, you got in our hot topics, we're talking about a governor who
Right.
pardoned the guy before he even, and you got the stupid governor in Florida.
Right.
So, for me, I try to be careful when I try to put the Democrats and Republicans in the same bag.
Okay. Talk to me.
Because they're not there. I mean, that Republican Party has gone, you know what, crazy.
Right.
Against us.
Right.
So,
And I think that's what I'm saying. I think I'm agreeing with you.
You know, I want to make a correction. I was saying that in South Carolina that they have taken over, the government has taken over some farmers' lands through the eminent domain. It really was in Tennessee.
Okay.
you mentioned something, and this brings up a discussion we had weeks ago. Black farmer puts his goods up there.
Mhm.
White farmer puts his goods up there. Where's the black folk gonna go?
To the white farm.
Yes, because they're milking fast. So the psychological thing, the psychological problem is something that we can't seem to get a grip on and deal with.
Now, let me ask a question. What happened to the man who was selling collard greens and stuff on the corner of W.W. White Road? You know, he used to have like a little bitty truck out there, and you can go there on weekends and buy your collard greens and stuff from him. What happened to him?
I don't know.
His collard greens weren't as good as HEB's collard greens.
But that's what it's the point that you made is that as a community, we are going to have to decide that we can support the community. We can spend $20 here, maybe $30 here, put the two together, and still have a good pot of greens. And I'm using collard greens, but it's this fear that our products are inferior when they probably are not inferior. They may be the more healthier of the two products because they're not using some of the fertilizers and some of the other stuff.
Let me say this. We are way off topic, but I will say if you have any doubt of what direction Black people are having on the world, look at your commercials, especially in America. Every commercial that you see has a Black person in it, somebody rapping in it, or some kind of element that is related to the Black person. And to me, even before you look at what's happening politically, look at what's happening with the products that are being sold in America.
Well, but it still gets back to, we have to get over this idea that whites produce better products, whites are smarter than us. Only thing we don't concede is sports or singing, but everything else we concede.
We can see it in sports too, because you don't have no owners. You got the slave mentality. They have an auction or a draft, and you go there and whatever. It's the same thing.
Only difference is you get paid a lot of money. Slaves got killed.
Right.
So that's a major difference. But every topic we have can go back to one thing: the psychological damage done to us as a race during, I see those years, 1865 until about 1964. The movies, all that stuff was putting us down, and we still struggle with that.
I hate for you to take me there, but what I'm going to say to you especially is that we look at the Nation of Islam as the only one right now that has a program that talks about what you're talking about. But because of the leader and the different things like that, many Blacks cannot get to the point of dealing with them, even though they have their own products, they got their own farms, they got their own, I mean, I buy their salt from them, I buy beans from them, I buy all that kind of stuff.
That goes back to what we said before. You know, you can't tell people who believe for 80 years that Jesus is the way to get to heaven. And then all the way, something tell them, no, that's not it. And you need to believe in Allah and not God and Jesus. You can't get beyond that psychological point. And another thing I don't like about the nation is they treat women like they're inferior to men. They do that. Oh, they do.
Okay. So that concludes this segment.
My question.
Oh, you got to.
I got a question. No, but it's actually about farming.
Okay.
I know. So since the 1900s, black farmers have lost hundreds of millions of acres. And so that, due to discrimination, USDA, and a variety of other state
Creative thievery.
right. And so that and just this the conspiracy of the banking industry and everything else. And so we've lost that acreage. We've lost the number. I know it's down to about what 1.4%. She did mention as far as the farming. I think we're about 45,000 black farmers. My question is, and I think even if that you take that 45,000 number, I wonder how many of that is actually micro farming, and how much of that is urban farming that are in food deserts, co-ops and stuff like that. So I think the numbers are probably even a lot lower. And so my question is though, if I'm in a room full of 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, and they ask me why should they care, and so what's my answer to them? That's and I'll leave that. Why should I? What answer do I give a 17-year-old, 18-year-old as to why they should care about the issues with black farming?
Good question.
So how do I educate them?
I have no answer for you.
I'm looking at myself. The reason why I got into growing crops in my backyard was to take care of my family. So they need to know that although we would like to see the engineers, we would like to see them as doctors, that they can do the two simultaneously and learn how to produce these products so that it can take care of themselves. And we know that a lot of the food that's being given to us has elements in it that might be contributing to our downfall health-wise. And so if you're producing your own collard greens, tomatoes, whatever, you have more control as to what's in that food versus going to the store and buying the food. If you can put a chicken in your backyard, get some chickens in your backyard. But I think that we need to show them the duplicity of being able to be a professor and raise crops.
What would you say, Caleb?
I mean, I'm asking, how do I explain that to them?
What is it that you're trying to explain to them? You said,
I mean, we understand, right? And so let's bring this. I'm trying to bring this conversation out of the esoteric and talk to 17-year-old and 18-year-olds. And how do I explain to them? They say, well, I can go to HEB or I can go to Walmart grocery store. And I don't. How do I explain to them how important black farming is? If they ask that question, well, why do I care?
Well, you can always use as an example, and I know we're running out of time, that during the lockdown, what happened? We went to the HEB. There were some shelves that were totally stripped naked. Even if you look for chickens and hamburger meats, it was getting low. So if you don't know if you don't have a plan B, this is called a plan B, on how to sustain yourself for a long period of time, you're in trouble. And your neighbors may not share what they have.
Fred. Who was the one who said, God bless the child who has his own? Who said that?
Billie Holiday?
I think so, Billie Holiday. So my point to you, Caleb, is that something you point out, which is, Dr. Sharon, I'm sorry to point to you, but when we begin to fend for ourselves, because in the times now, when I talked about at the very beginning, how America is coming to a point to where we're a nation of need, as opposed to the nation of plenty. And those farms or those gardens that you have in the back of your house may be increasingly coming more important to you than anything else.
Right. And so with that, again, when you talk about that, you talk about micro farming, you're talking about it on a local level or even on a community level. But when you're talking about black farmers that are in rural areas and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And the discrimination and them, like, how do you tell young folks that that also matters?
Let me
But
give you,
you know, it goes back to the nation. Okay, the first thing they teach everybody. You saw the movie on Malcolm X. Remember when the brother who's in the nation and he talks about all that stuff. You know, you gotta run and get all that stuff out of your hair because you're trying to be like you're white. What they do is they teach blacks to love blacks. So if we do that well, then what you're talking about won't be an issue. You won't have to explain to them
okay, I like that.
because they'll already know.
I like that.
This is what I should do.
Keep talking. I like that.
Well, such a good place.
I think
He's complimenting me.
Hold on. So we're going to go ahead and end this segment and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about hot topics. And we're going to talk about, okay, let's use the word. We're getting ready to drag Governor Greg Abbott and his attempt to pardon a criminal.